Udrea Utsurarea Kirea Ut unic tue paeaba, ut unic tue misi tucaba, escalamma carimba shuaba, shurinda calamma canichta. Ankita Badabaraba Ki Anta Badasuraba Nunon Uruba
Sure, my mic is on. Good morning to you, MORPHITEs out there. You may have noticed already, if you're tuning in, that this is not a Saturday sunrise stream, which is why you'll notice the title has been changed to the Saturday sleep-in stream for today. That's right. Like most of you on a Saturday, I slept in today. For the first time in a while, actually, since I started this series. I hadn't even thought about it, and then when I woke up, I was like, wow, I missed the sunrise. And I'm like, man, that's the first time I've done that in a while. On a Saturday, anyways. On weekdays, I actually sleep in later. I don't get up till an hour or two after that. I'm not up at sunrise. Who gets up at sunrise? Come on. I'm not a farmer. Happy Saturday to you all. I hope it's treating you well. Actually, part of the reason I was up so late was something really interesting. Make sure I'm actually going here. All right. Something really interesting that I started into, by the way, if you can't tell, that was the Epic of Gilgamesh in Sumerian that we were listening to just a moment ago. I just know those random things I stumbled across on the internet, and I figured it'd be kind of interesting. I listened to like 2 seconds of it, and I was like, oh, this would be a great intro song for this morning. I'll post it, of course, in the description so you can see and listen to that yourself, because he's got lyrics. The guy who did that song, actually, he has lyrics on the screen of what he's saying, and it's one of the oldest songs, and he's doing it, performing it in the original Sumerian. Now, it may not have sounded exactly like that. We don't know, because we don't have any Sumerians around to tell us what their language actually sounded like, and if we're mispronouncing or using there instead of there, or anything like that. Anyways, as I was saying, last night, I actually was up late, up into the wee hours of the morning, because I was rediscovering, or discovering for the first time in some ways, kind of that Wild West nature of the internet. And you might remember, if you're older than me, if you're older than 30, you might remember back in the day, after school, coming home in like middle school, high school, coming home after school, if you didn't have, baseball, basketball practice that day, or band or something, you'd come home, you'd get on, you start doing your homework or whatever, maybe you're playing music on your computer, and we didn't have smartphones, all right? We didn't have all this texting and all that stuff. Maybe texting was around, but it definitely nowhere to the same level. And, you couldn't just Snapchat somebody, instantly FaceTime, all this stuff. None of that existed. So what we'd do is we'd hop on AIM, Yahoo, whatever. Sometimes we'd have a client that would host all the different chat services. What was that one? It wasn't Penguin. It was like Pigeon Messenger or something. I forget. Anyways, you'd get on that, and you could see all of your friends would be on too, and then you'd chat after school or whatever. You'd get on, and you'd kind of go back and forth, and there was kind of like your own little chat room you'd have going, maybe of a couple people or just in between you. In fact, I don't know. It might have just been personal back and forth. Anyways, that was kind of the thing for a while. But I was taken back to that moment, because that idea is really the essence of, it really was the essence of why the internet was created in the first place, is this idea of instant communication across, the distance doesn't even matter. It instantaneously transports you and puts you in the presence of someone else without having to actually physically be there. And it all happens so fast that, the idea is communication. And that was originally why the internet was designed, was this idea of communication on a broad scale in a way that we'd never seen before. And last night I got on Discord. If you're not familiar with Discord, Discord is, in fact, I'll be setting up a Discord server for MORPHITE here in the near future. Discord is kind of like those chat rooms from way back in the day. You have a main channel, or a main, I don't know, I'll probably get the terms all wrong. I'm not into all these TikToks and stuff you people do. It's on Discord, you have a main like channel or a main thing that's from your brand or whatever, and then under that you have all of these channels you create. If you use Slack for work or something like that, it's very similar to that. You create all these channels and all these specific categories of saying, okay, this channel is going to be chatting about this thing, or only share this, and you can set up rules and filter who can post, and there's all kinds of stuff you can do for it. It's not too much different than a lot of other chat things, but I think it really took off because it caught on in the gaming community as far as the things it offered and who it marketed to, and so it got really big really fast, and now it's kind of just out there. But what I got onto last night, in light of hearing the news about Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing, I got onto a conservative chat room that was about that, or at least that was the heading of the topic, and it wasn't text, it was a voice chat. And I'd never actually been on one of these before, and when I got on there, I realized that anyone, anywhere in the world could just hop onto this, and it kind of limits how many people can get on a singular thing at one time and how many people can talk. And they have a moderator who runs it from this side, because they had so many people on there, and which was a smart thing. You don't get trolls and all that. But anybody could just get on there and talk real time, like a party line, or like a conference call. That's a free-for-all. Like, anybody could just hop in if they logged in, if they were on, they're doing something else, whatever, on their phone or on the computer, they could just hop in and they could all talk, and it was just kind of this public forum space where anybody could talk. And that's not really novel. That's been around since, anytime, if you've played a game online, in the past 15, 20 years, they've had, voice chat, and you could, you talk with people, but usually you're more focused on the game, or people are just kind of throwing comments here and there. This was interesting because it's specifically for a specific purpose, and a specific type of people would be the only ones who would find the link and who would actually be on there. And it was really cool. It was there was people on there who were 17. There was guys on there who were 25. There was a guy who was 35. There was a guy who was like 45, and we were all just chatting, just hanging out, total strangers, but we were united by the fact we came from this specific forum, which obviously we have. It was on Reddit, actually, and we'd have similar views, or at least we're interested in certain political views. Some people who were in the chat later on in the night were libertarian or slightly left-leaning, and it was a cool way that we all could just, still kind of anonymous. I mean, you've got your screen name, but nobody knows who you really are. Everybody could just hop in and just be, listening to each other and sounding off and giving opinions, or maybe just listening in like I was. It reminded me of like AM radio. If you've ever been a lonely truck driver or something, in the middle of the night and you got nothing else going on, you pop on AM radio and there's just, callers calling in, just yakking in the middle of the night. It was kind of like that. Anyways, I'd encourage you to go check out if you're on somebody's channel, if you're on somebody's, if you follow somebody's brand or something, see if they have a Discord and see if they have a voice chat, because it's pretty cool, even if you don't feel comfortable talking yourself, to just listen in on, to just check it out and just hear what people are rambling about. It was very encouraging because, and again, I know Saturday Sunrise, I promise not to get political, but I guess it was very encouraging on multiple levels, but one of the things was just to hear how involved and how self-educated a lot of the younger generation is. And I don't get interaction with the younger generation a ton, at least at that age, because it's kind of, honestly, it's kind of weird. Like, I'm 31-year-old guy. I'm just going to hang out with high schoolers. Like, that's just kind of strange. But, and I don't have any kids myself, so, anybody younger than that, I don't really have a big reason to see. But it was kind of cool to hear some people from a broad spectrum weighing in on topics from their opinions, showing what they knew, what they were aware of, what was going on in the world. And you had people sharing information up and down that chain. You had this guy who was in the military, who was like 32 or 35 or something, and he was sharing his experiences, going through boot camp and whatever, and just talking about, challenges in life, to these guys who are, thinking about going in and joining. And so you're able to share kind of this advice back and forth, or tip people off to things that are happening in real time. Those things happening, people would say, hey, check out this stream. They'd share it in the text chat. People would jump on it, or you could actually stream on your video. Anyways, I'm rambling about it, but it was pretty cool. So I'm probably going to set one of those up here in the near future and get that going. And I enjoyed it a lot. But that's the reason why I was up so late. I was honestly just fascinated. I ended up getting on a video game and just playing kind of in the background, but listening to this stuff and just listening to the people talk, listening to, and this is another interesting thing, because I feel that right now, more often, or more clearly than ever, let me back that up, more accessible than ever, the opinion of the common man, the viewpoint, the belief, the voice of the common man is available to everybody who's in a position of power, whether it's celebrities, politicians, whatever it is. And it's kind of neat to be able to see that and to hear that. And my hope is that people who are, CEOs and people who are politicians and whatever it is, are tapping into this stuff, are aware of it. I wasn't aware that you could just listen in and just hear what people are thinking, what people are talking about like this. And so it'd be cool to have that be a part of the national conversation more broadly. I know people sound off on Twitter and stuff like that, but this was cool to actually hear somebody's voice too, because there's so much that you can't convey through text. I mean, anybody who's been online for more than 10 minutes knows you can miss sarcasm, you can try to say the thing you thought you said, and then you forget words, or you just misquote yourself or whatever. I mean, it can get really messy really fast. However, if you have that voice stuff, that really you can really say exactly what you want to say, and you can sound exactly how you want to sound. So, all right. Enough rambling. I'm going to go into some other stuff this morning. I honestly just kind of threw together some things that I had already running, so we're going to see what we got going on here. Growing gold nanoparticles. This is one of the weirdest clickbaity sounding things. This is from newatlas.com. I just came across this. I have no idea if this is real or if this is just total bunk. We're going to find out. Growing gold nanoparticles inside tumors can help kill cancer. Now, this sounds so sci-fi. Like, I'm going to take gold and make it grow inside of a tumor. This is craziness. All right. It says gold isn't just a pretty face. It's shown promise in fighting cancer. Researchers have found a way to grow gold nanoparticles directly inside cancer cells. Now, they're kind of skimming over the part to me that is key here, is growing gold. I thought alchemists have been trying to just manufacture gold out of thin air for years, and here apparently that wasn't the hard part. The hard part is putting it inside cancer cells. So we've already got the growing gold down. I mean, we could just kind of make that apparently, but it's growing it inside cancer cells. That's the actual breakthrough here. Within 30 minutes, wow, which can help with imaging and even be heated up to kill the tumors. Heated up, So they're kind of boiling the tumors. In previous work, gold nanostars, nanotubes, and other nanoparticle structures have been sent into battle against cancer. One of the main hurdles is getting the stuff inside the tumors. Sometimes they're equipped with peptides that hunt down cancer. Others sneak in attached to white blood cells. They found a way to grow the gold directly inside the cancer cells. That's so weird. They use polyethylene glycol, or PEG. PEGI-18 is a delivery vector for ionic gold. It's essentially gold salts dissolved in a liquid. Wow. Gold nanoparticles reduced by cellular biomolecules. This seriously sounds like... What, you guys ever seen that movie, what is it, The Fantastic Voyage? Where they shrink themselves down and they go inside somebody's body to like kill off cancer, to kill off a tumor. They like laser it from the inside. This is what this reminds me of. This is what he says, reduced by cellular biomolecules. Able to retain their functionality, including the capacity to guide the remaining cluster to the nucleus. Dipanjan Pan. Blah, blah, blah. They tested on mice. Research was published in the Journal of Nature Communication. So I'm going to share this link as to... This actually doesn't go a ton into, I guess it kind of explains. Doesn't really explain their success. It's been demonstrated in the past. The gold isn't usually grown inside the cells themselves. Wow. Crazy stuff. This... they are... You know, for all the troubles in the world and all the things we see that are problems, there are still people that are doing amazing work, inventing things, creating things, discovering things, figuring out how to solve problems, and all kinds of stuff. All right, so speaking of solving problems, IBM just committed to having a functioning 1,000 qubit quantum computer by 2023. Once again, I did not read this, so I don't know if this is legit or not. I mean, so often you hear a headline like this and it's just pure hype. There was one actually not too long ago where somebody, man, I can't remember which company, somebody said, we have a quantum computer. And what they actually had was a method of creating a quantum computer, or they had a proof of concept or something like that. They didn't actually have a working real model. It was like the concept was being fulfilled, but it was very hypey, very market speak. All right, IBM just committed to having a functioning 1,000 qubit quantum computer. I thought a qubit was the distance. I don't understand how that helps. All right, let's find out. We're still a long way from realizing the full potential of quantum computing, yes, you think, but scientists are making progress all the time. As a sign of what might be coming, IBM now says it expects to have a 1,000 qubit machine up and running by 2023. I would love to be able to compare those numbers here in a few years, instead of saying like I get 3 gigahertz, or I have a dual core, I have an octa core, so many cores. I don't know what to do with all these cores. Instead of that, we're going to be like, I've got 500 qubits. How many qubits do you have? And it's like we're going all the way back to Noah and the flood. We're all going to be measuring stuff by qubits. It's going to be great. With the IBM Quantum Condor Man, planned for 2023, running 1,121 qubits to be exact, we should start to see quantum computers start to tackle a substantial number of genuine real-world calculations rather than being restricted to laboratory experiments. Yeah, that's all they've been good for up to this point. We think of Condor as an inflection point, a milestone that marks our ability to implement error correction and scale up our devices, while simultaneously complex enough to explore potential quantum advantages with capital letters. So this is like a category of life now. Quantum advantage. Problems that we can solve more efficiently on a quantum computer than on the world's best supercomputers. So then we're going to have, this is like anytime anything gets displaced by the next level of technology, the supercomputers, even though they are supercomputers, are going to get displaced by the quantum computers, and they're going to be, it's just going to be like that Disney cartoon with the old jalopy, where it's all sad and run down, and it's like not really good for anything anymore. It's going to be the same thing. There'll be all these supercomputers just sitting around. They were the best of the best in their time, but now they're just kind of like the washed up high school football star. They're just kind of like, man, remember the glory days? Remember when we were solving problems? Remember when we were the ones crunching all of these chemical balances and whatever and whatnot? Oh man, supercomputers are going to be a thing of the past. What a world. It's a bold target to set, considering IBM's biggest quantum computer to date just holds 65 qubits. That's quite a jump from 65 to 1,121, especially considering I don't really know what that means. I don't know if that's a logarithmic scale, if this is like a whole level a whole nother level every time you go up, if it's like multiplying or if it's additive. I mean, who knows? This could be way more amazing than I'm making it out to be, or it could be not really amazing at all, and somebody paid for techradicals.wordpress.com to publish this thing. Again, marketing. The company says it plans to have a 127 qubit machine ready in 2021. This is coming, that's right around the corner. 433 qubits in 2022. Computer holding 1 million qubits at some unspecified point in the future. 1 million qubits. Today's quantum computers require very delicate, ultra-cold setups and are easily knocked off course by almost any kind of atmospheric interference or noise. That's terrible. That is, like, useless. Not ideal if you're trying to crunch some numbers. Yeah, I don't think so. What having more qubits does is provide better error correction. Okay. Complex nature means error correction is more of a challenge, blah, blah, blah. Qubits, 1,000 qubits still wouldn't be enough to take on full-scale quantum computing challenges. So we're not there yet. But don't you worry, citizen. The future is right around the corner, like it or not. It'd be enough to maintain a small number of stable, logical qubit systems that could then interact with each other. Oh, then we're just gonna, we'll just talk about quantum teleportation while we're at it, you know? Why not? If you if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you should look up quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement. I first learned about quantum entanglement from Mass Effect, actually, a video game series, because they were using it to communicate, which is one of the first things we could use, one of the earliest technologies we could use quantum entanglement for. I know it's not what this article's about, but it's really cool, so let me explain it as much as I know how, which is probably going to be wrong. Quantum entanglement means you have two particles, nanoparticles, on wherever they are in the universe, are essentially, just to put it in layman's terms, they're mirror images, or like clone images of each other, but they're not just clones, they're entangled on a quantum level, which means when you affect one, like let's say you raise the temperature on one of them, and it's inside a lab or something, and you raise the temperature on it, the other one will raise by the same amount. And we don't actually quite understand how this works, but that it's all quantum, that it's all happening on this quantum level, this other level of relationship besides just up, down, left, right, spatially, that we understand with how we move and we interact with the world. We can entangle these particles. What that means then is, let's say this particle, let's say you had a cluster of particles that's essentially a text file, and you would just put on it, hi from the other side of the universe, and the other particle, no matter where it is going to reflect those changes in real time as you're making them. So it's kind of like the cloud, except with no cloud. It's insane. So if you took this, you could then communicate instantaneously anywhere in the universe with no lag, because there wouldn't be this idea of, I'm transmitting information. That cluster of particles, that is the entangled version of the cluster of particles you have on your side, would just instantaneously change the same way they're changing yours. So it'd be almost like just a mirror to that other place. It's crazy. It's hard to wrap your head around. But that technology, or that access to that and working within that framework will then allow us to have instant communication anywhere in the universe. And it also would then allow possibly quantum teleportation. So you could actually, because it's essentially what you're doing. If you're sending information, you're sending information no matter what you do. If you move the particle and the other particle moves, you've just sent information. You just told this particle to move, and the other particle is moving at the same time. So you're communicating to someone observing the other particle that, hey, this move up or whatever, And so if you're able to do that, you're able to teleport information. You're able to then teleport more than just information, or if information is able to get to the point where it includes more than just communication, if you could actually include a physical thing, like a fax, essentially, to the other side of the universe. If you guys remember what fax machines are, then leave a like on this video. And if you don't remember what fax machines are, I don't want your like. No, I'm just kidding. We'll accept likes from anybody. But yeah, that totally went off the rails. But quantum entanglement is pretty awesome. Search that, look that up, stick that in your pipe and smoke it. All right, IBM hopes that by committing itself to these targets, it can better focus on quantum computing. Other companies working in the same space will know what to expect over the coming years. Oh, wow, okay. Like, we're setting the standard. We're setting the tone for what you can expect to accomplish. Like, don't worry, bro. I'm doing this ahead of you, so you'll know what you can do when you get there. You'll get there eventually. Eventually, you'll be playing at the level we were playing at last year, and then, this is what the kind of stuff you can expect when you get there. We've gotten to the point where there is enough aggregate investment going on. That's an interesting term, aggregate investment. It's really important to start having coordination mechanisms and signaling mechanisms that we're not grossly misallocated. What a bunch of words just shoved into a sentence. we've gotten to the point where there's enough aggregate investment going on that it's really important to start having coordination mechanisms and signaling mechanisms so that we're not grossly misallocating resources and we allow everybody to do their piece. This is by technologist Dario Gil. I guess that should have been with a like a nerdy Hispanic accent or something. Dario, senior executive at IBM, told TechCrunch. So yeah, IBM still doing stuff in computers. IBM's been around forever in computers, and now they're still working in computers and making quantum qubit stuff. All right, last thing I have today, and it's because I'm going a little short today. I have no idea when I started. When did I start? 25 minutes ago. Is this, because this is bothersome. It says, Vikings may not be who we thought they were. This is troublesome because I have some Viking relevant ancestry, and so I'm concerned hearing this. But I am almost 100% certain this is a clickbait article, but we're going to find out how clickbaity it really is. But the internet is clickbait at this point, let's just admit it. Other than things like I was talking about earlier. Oh, that's the other reason. Okay. I've talked about this a little bit before, but that's the other reason why I was... Mark says everyone needs a rooster crowing. I know, I was going to mention the rooster. Because I was going to say, don't be fooled that it's not sunrise. That rooster just crows all the time regardless. So just because you hear the rooster doesn't mean it's sunrise. The rooster's kind of an idiot. Anyways, that was part of the reason why I was so excited listening to that live chat, the live voice chat, is because you can't fake that. So often we hear about bots online, and so much of the internet is just spun content, articles that are just spit out by machines and bots and whatever, and none of it's really real people talking to each other. Again, the whole idea of the internet, of people communicating, it's through a proxy, and it's through a bot, and it's through another thing, and it's on all these levels. But you can't get closer right now, anyways, until we have quantum teleportation holograms or whatever. You can't get closer to someone else online than voice chat or video chat, and to be able to have that real-time instantaneous chatting between people that's real is really striking and very cool, because that's the other thing. When you're typing, when you're anonymous and you just see text pop up and they say, I hate you because your eyes are blue or whatever it is, I was looking at it in front of me, you don't know if that's a real person, and you don't know what they really look like, and you don't know if they are who they say they are, if they're the kind of person they say they are. They could be a 45-year-old man pretending to be a 10-year-old girl. Like, you never know. But when you're hearing their voice, you can tell. You can hear in their voice what they're thinking. You can hear in their voice what they, how they really feel, and it's real. It's raw. Anyways, I don't know why I was talking about that, because we need to learn about... Oh, because Vikings and, we don't know, clickbait. Anyways, real people, all that. You got me. You're following. History books typically depict Vikings as blue-eyed, blonde-haired, burly men sailing the North Atlantic coast to pillage wherever they set foot on land. While some of that may be true, a new genetic study of Viking DNA is flipping much of this history on its head. Ooh, the largest genetic study of Viking DNA ever. I need a coffee sip on that one. And I like how they use the term diaspora. I found Vikings and their diaspora. Everyone, that's one of those words that nobody thought about, like wasn't really part of our lexicon until I think a few years ago. I mean, the words existed, but people didn't use it in common parlance. And once somebody did somewhere, it got popular, and now it's one of everyone's favorite terms to use when they're talking about anything to do with ethnic groups and genealogies and whatever. They're like, the diaspora. Anyways, actually much more genetically diverse than we may have thought, and we're not necessarily all part of a homogeneous background. I think it's homogeneous. I think they're missing an E. I could be wrong, but I think so. Sequencing the genomes of over 400 Viking men, women, and children. Did they have to use a quantum supercomputer for that? From ancient burial sites, researchers found... I read that as ancient brutal sites, which it probably was. Researchers found evidence of genetic influence from Southern Europe and Asia. Okay, so we've got Vikings, Nordic, Southern Europe, and Asia in their DNA, in Viking DNA, dating back to before the Viking Age. Well, I mean, that's... Everyone's related genetically anyways, so this isn't really surprising to me. Then authors also note that individuals not related to Vikings genetically, such as native Pictish people of Scotland and Ireland, sometimes receive traditional Viking burials, suggesting that being a Viking was not so much about specific family roots, but about a sense of internal identity. That... Sorry, what? Internal identity. I feel like a Viking. So then they'd go through and do the Viking. No, that's like any culture. They come in and especially a dominating culture like that, they would come in, take over. They'd probably establish a little outpost or something. And so, of course, their cultural customs, their religion, whatever, is going to influence or be band-aided in wherever they settle up or wherever they go raiding and pillaging. I don't think... sense of internal identity. That's extrapolating a little too far to me to talk about people who died, 1,000 years ago, and to say, you know what it was. We don't have anything written down, but I'm pretty sure this guy was doing Viking traditions because he felt like a Viking. He had some internal identification as a Viking. He was like, you know what? These people who rape and pillage all around here, I feel like one of them. That's really my calling. That's really how I identify. That's how I identify, is as a Viking. So I'm gonna carry that out. I don't think people were thinking that kind of stuff back then. They were more like, all right, how do I eat today? How do I survive? How do I make sure I don't get pillaged today? In the study, published Wednesday in the journal Nature, an international team of researchers reports findings from their 6-year-long study of 442 human remains. So it was over 400, now they say 442. Burial sites date back between the Bronze Age to the early modern period. Wow, that's quite the spread. Holy cow, that's props to them for actually using BC. Wait, that's what, 2,400... That's like 3,000 year span. When comparing the genetic material of these ancient samples with 3,855 present-day individuals, data from 1,118, they're just like mix and matching all kinds of DNA. They discovered more intermixing of genetic material than they'd originally imagined. So basically, they just figured out that these people were intermingling more than previously thought. We have this image of well-connected Vikings mixing, trading, going and raiding parties. Wasn't that kind of world? No one could have predicted these significant gene flows. I don't see why this is so surprising. I guess just because they weren't all blonde and blue-eyed. Is that the revelation here? That, well, they might have looked a little more darker skinned with brown hair. I guess that is, a well-known image of Vikings being blonde and blue-eyed, like Chris Hemsworth, may not be totally true, especially for Vikings with Southern European roots. I mean, I probably could have told you that anyways. Like, that's... Again, I think this one is a little more clickbait. I mean, it's cool that they studied and actually confirmed this stuff, but I would hope that most people would just assume, well, they're not all blonde and blue-eyed, and they're probably intermingling. I mean, with all the raping and pillaging going on, you have all of these descendants coming about, I'm sure, that were them in, heavily Viking DNA mixed in with whatever else they were intermingling with at the time. Confirmed some long-held theories and hunches, yeah, so... What they find? One of the first hunches was able to confirm was this is only the beginning of the article. This study changed the perception of who a Viking actually was. So now they're going into the details. Vikings weren't just Scandinavians, their genetic ancestry, high levels of non-Scandinavian ancestry, ongoing gene flow across Europe. Again, not surprising. I guess it's kind of cool that they confirmed all that. Some Vikings weren't of genetic Viking descent at all. You're not a real Viking. Researchers found... Is this going to become the next no true Scotsman, no true Viking? Researchers found when analyzing a Viking burial site in Orkney, Scotland, despite being put to rest in traditional Viking style, including swords, other Viking memorabilia, they sequenced the DNA, and they found that 2 individuals buried in the site were in fact of Pictish descent. Bum, bum, bum! They were not actual Vikings, even though they were buried as Vikings. Those deceitful Pictish. I have no idea who the Pictish are. Early Irish, early Scottish. I've never heard that term before. Researchers write, this discovery suggests that being a Viking was not necessarily about how far back your Nordic roots reached, but instead had more to do with one's lived identity. So, isn't that what everybody thought anyways? A Viking is not yes, we would associate it with a certain type of genetic makeup and profile, but a Viking was a lifestyle. To Vike, which is where that word comes from, means to go rape, pillage, and plunder, which is what they did, which is why they're called Vikings. They did that stuff. That's why they were called Vikings. It's a cultural association, not necessarily a genetic or ethnic description. Nordic would be a little more of a ethnic, distinction. Results change perception of who a Viking actually was. The history books will need to be updated. Wow, that's... For how? Like, what part of the history book needs to be up? What kind of history book was, said in it, Viking? I mean, maybe there's a history book that says Vikings were a tall, blonde, blue-eyed race of men and women who would, et cetera, et cetera. Like, if they're describing Vikings that way, they've already got it wrong. So if the history book needs to be updated anyways, if that's what they're doing, because Vikings are not it's a cultural association group, not an ethnic group. In addition to providing a more nuanced look at this transformational period of history, I guess what cracked me about this sentence is the gall of someone saying, based on the things we've discovered, you guys need to update your history book. We have information that you did not have access to, and you must update your history book now. Get version 2.0. So now all those poor kids who already spent $300 on their stupid history book for this semester are going to have to spend another $300 and try to offsell the old one to some poor sap who doesn't realize that it's the old edition and has information about Vikings that has not been updated yet. And make sure it's required by the school so people have to pay into this book scam that goes on. Oh, boy. Anybody who's in college or has been in college knows what I'm talking about. In addition to providing a more nuanced look, blah, 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 pigmentation, immunity, metabolism. So that's pretty interesting, actually, if they're getting a little more... Oh, that is the end of the article. They're getting a little more detail then about their actual genomes, what their makeup was, which means with that information, you could then find out more about their diet, about their lifestyle choices, and how it affected them and that kind of stuff. So I guess this is good science stuff to do. I'm wondering who... I've never actually met someone who had this kind of dedication to a very specific scientific thing like this. I'm going to go sequence genomes from archaeological people's dig sites in Europe and Greenland. I mean, it's good stuff, and that's how we get information like this, to fully understand history and that kind of stuff. But I've never met anyone who is that interested or dedicated in that specific kind of thing. So it'd be interesting to them to talk about that topic. We find the Viking period involved gene flow into Scandinavia from the south and east. We observe genetic structure, diversity hotspots in the south, and a restricted gene flow within Scandinavia. That makes sense. We find evidence for major influx of Danish ancestry into England, Swedish influx into the Baltic, Norwegian influx into Ireland, Iceland, and Greenland. We see substantial ancestry from elsewhere in Europe entering Scandinavia during the Viking Age. Viking expeditions included close family members. That's interesting. I would assume they would want to, if they're going off to go raid and to go to war and whatnot, they want their family members fighting alongside them. That's usually, especially traditionally. That's another interesting thing about modern military is so often it's a bunch of loosely aggregated people from within a nation that are brought together to then go fight a war. But most wars prior to the 20th century, you were fighting side by side with your actual neighbors and actual brethren, your actual family. People had more, had a lot of, as many kids as they could back then too. And so you'd be fighting shoulder to shoulder with people who were literally your friends and neighbors, as opposed to I'm fighting alongside someone who becomes my brother, becomes my companion, my comrade in arms, but I may have had no association with prior to that. In this, any physical conflict we see prior to that, prior to the modern age, you were usually fighting physically, and you're fighting with people that you knew. So it'd be a much different type of battlefield scenario in that sense, where you'd have that strength of will and strength of wanting to fight to protect and defend, your actual homeland or your actual friends and neighbors. Although these guys weren't really defending anything. Vikings are similar to pirates in that we have an extremely romanticized, rose-tinted idea of who they were. It's mentioned in passing. Oh yeah, they were, they were raiding and pillaging, but it was kind of cool because they were Vikings and they had big axes and stuff. And you're like, yeah, but they were also total jerks. They were just going around like, literally raping people, killing people with impunity. It's like the Mongolians, they were horrible people. Like, they were not good. Pirates were not good people. Despite what Johnny Depp might try to convince you of, pirates were awful. You wouldn't want to know or hang out with a pirate because he would sooner steal stuff from you than actually be your friend. It's weird that we have this modern day fascination with this goes to a lot of cultural shifts in the whole idea of the anti-hero and the idea that basically the villain is the hero now, and that's become something very strong within popular culture, whether it's films, books, movies, all that stuff. But because of a lot of that stuff, we've painted a lot of these people groups as positive things, and it's like, no, that's not good. We don't do that. We don't go around conquering and pillaging and stuff. That's kind of rude. I mean, really, that's just what it comes down to. It's just poor manners. By comparing with modern populations, find that pigmentation-associated loci have undergone strong population differentiation during the past millennium. Trace positively selected loci, I don't know how to pronounce that, including the lactase persistence allele of LCT and alleles of ANCA. They're associated. He just totally dove in. This is the abstract from the original document, I guess. But up till that point, this was all regular terms that you could basically understand. And then suddenly he's like, lactase persistence alleles of LCT and alleles of ANCA associated with the immune response. I remember the term allele, something to do with DNA. We conclude, all right, the crux of the matter. The Viking diaspora was characterized by substantial trans-regional engagement. Again, that was already known. Distinct populations influenced the genomic makeup of different regions of Europe, and Scandinavia experienced increased contact with the rest of the continent. So that is what we learned today. See, even on Saturday, you can learn history and how your history book is wrong. It needs updated. It needs these guys, Sakura, whoever, I don't know, all these people who are involved in this. You need to get with them, get with your history professor, and get them to update your history book because it's wrong. It doesn't have the right information. The history books will need to be updated. We must update the history books. All right, that's all I actually had for today. I don't know how long it's been going on. 40 minutes, it's a decent stream. Thank you so much for joining. If you liked it, please leave a like. Subscribe to the channel to see more of this. I will be doing these next week. I will get up for the sunrise. We're going to have these every Saturday. We're doing Saturday sunrise. Every Tuesday night, we're doing Bible verses. I got one more piece on BLM, and then we're going to move on to the next topic. I'm getting a little tired of that topic, honestly, but there was a lot of stuff to cover, and I figured once it's out there, if you want to share it, if you're going to look back at it, if I want to look back at it, I've got my notes. I'm going to be putting all that stuff, notes from that, together into a blog post and having all the videos embedded so you can see it on the website once I'm done. And then I guess this coming Thursday, right? Because it's, because if I'm going to do it this month, it's going to have to be this next week. We're going to be starting Thursday evening the Hidden History. So you'll have more to update your history book. No, it's Hidden History is the whole idea of that series. I don't know if I haven't really explained it. The Hidden History series is just going to be a bunch of, I got it off this list of stuff. I'll go into it more when I introduce that series, but it's going to be a similar format to, I've got the word Viking in front of me, to the Bible Verses series, and except it'll be specifically history stuff. And as far as it'll be live streamed, I'll probably pull up more graphs, charts, pictures, articles, stuff with that. Probably, I don't know. It depends on the topic. I may not have stuff to access. But anyways, and that'll be starting off with Atlantis. I've looked up some stuff about that, and we'll be going into that more. And it'll be a lot of different topics like that. Things that essentially are historical, are documented, but are not well known. And there's a whole list of stuff there we're going to be going through, and I'll just kind of weigh in on it, give some commentary. I'll probably try to keep it somewhat light so it's not super heavy and boring, but anyways, that'll be Thursday night. So we got Tuesday night, Thursday night, and then Saturday morning. So anyways, if you subscribe, that's the kind of stuff you're going to get. Also, this coming week, you're going to see a video, probably this coming week. Should be this coming week. You'll see a video about our next update, talking a little bit about what's going on at MORPHITE, some of the things we've been working on. Not a whole ton of stuff going on, but a little few updates. And then we did an interview with our dad that we're going to have a couple of clips from that was really cool. If you've never done that, I would highly encourage you to do that. If you get a chance, if your parents are still alive or your grandparents are still alive, go interview them. Go just set aside, like make a day trip out of it, take a whole afternoon, take them out to lunch, whatever, and just grab your phone, turn on the mic, and just record them, because and ask them all those questions you've never asked them. What happened here? Why'd you disappear this year? What actually changed your life this much? Why did you move this here? Before you and mom or you and dad met, what was life like? All that stuff that you might get in bits and pieces, but you never actually physically ask them. You literally ask them, okay, tell me this, tell me about how did a fax machine work? Ask them all that stuff, because in your personal history, in your family history, that's the only way that stuff's going to get passed on. If you like let's say your parents die before your kids really get to know them or are old enough to know them, they're never going to know what they were like, and they're never, other than written documents, they're not going to have any of that information. And it's interesting because we're at we're in transitional generations where prior generations, like my grandparents' generation and older, documented things a lot personally. They had journals, they had that's basically journals. Letters was a big thing, and so you'd physically have letters written back and forth between people, and so you could say, okay, here's the whole, you'd have like a whole stack of letters between your grandparents when they were first meeting and first getting romantic, and they were writing back and forth, really cool stuff like that. And a lot of times they would physically save that. Well, sometime in the 20th century through till now, things started to change a little bit as far as what was getting recorded and how often and all that stuff. You'd still get that. Some of our parents still have physical things, but especially as we've transitioned now into the digital age, a lot of that stuff, I think, is not making that jump in the gap between physical media and digital media. You'll have VHS tapes hidden in a garage somewhere, but it won't actually ever get digitized. And so because of that, then this next generation is going to be missing a big chunk of history, personal family history of the generation above that, of basically two generations there in between all of that. I don't know if that makes sense. So all that to say, go interview your dad, your grandpa, your grandma, your mother, your aunt, whoever it is, and get that information from them. Just record it. Just do it on your cell phone, take a video, or just record with the audio, whatever it is. And you may never publish it anywhere. You may never actually do anything with it, but for you, it will be a very informative, eye-opening experience. And it also gives you a format where you can feel comfortable maybe asking things or going into things that otherwise would not be as comfortable. So you can say, if you started off with that format of, this is for family history, this isn't, this is personal, but it's not necessarily just for me. Like, I'm wanting to record your story, your life, your history, so that when I tell my children and my children tell their children who you were and what you were like, we get it right. People tend to feel a little more comfortable of saying, okay, it's almost like an interview, like on the news or something, where I want to be more factual. I want to shape how my story gets told. And they might open up in some ways that they may not otherwise. So I'd encourage you to do the same thing. We really enjoyed interviewing my dad, and he's got a crazy, cool, interesting story. So we'll probably be releasing most of the full interview at some point, but I think we have a little clip we've been working on. The other thing we've got coming out sometime here in the near future is going to be some snippets of Mark's been doing some heavy editing, like long hours, on these commentaries we've done. We haven't published any of them, but you may have seen some of cartoon commentaries and stuff we did a while back. We've been doing more of those, but with movies, and we'll just grab a movie, we'll sit down, and we'll watch it, and there's actually, the audio is kind of iffy because we're watching on this old projector we have, and it makes this terrible whine. But it's kind of fun to just kind of, kick back, take it back old school. We'll just sit down, got the projector going, and we're watching some old movie. And but we just hooked up our mics. We decided, hey, let's record this. We're having fun, commenting, talking, laughing. It's usually a movie we've seen before. And so it's we've got a bunch of little clips from those that are kind of fun, and we'll be putting those up. Just kind of stuff. But the fuller, bigger versions of those, longer versions of those, will be going up on our exclusive stuff. So if you want to see that, you got to hop on. I'll have the links in the description as always. I think it's $3 a month is the lowest tier we could set up, and that's you'll have early access to stuff. You'll have full access to stuff like that. We're trying to come up with more things that are different than what we're just putting on YouTube and whatever. And so yeah. Anyways, I've rambled plenty long enough. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.